Hi everyone, John here. In my last educational video, we talked about valuation. How to know if a stock is cheap or expensive using classic metrics such as PE ratio. But here's the trap. Sometimes a stock is cheap for a reason, because it deserves to be. Sometimes it's just a bad business. Just as you don't want to buy a car just because it's cheap, only to find out later that the engine is ruined. Today, we're talking about the quality check, and we're taking a look at four metrics that tell you if a company is a money printing machine or a bankruptcy waiting to happen. For that reason, we're going back to Joe's Pizza Shop, the shop our friend wants help buying, to understand these metrics. First up, we have net profit margin. So, Joe sells a pepperoni pizza for $10. That's his revenue. But before he gets paid, he has to pay for the dough, the cheese, the rent, and the staff. After all those costs, he's left with just $1 of pure profit per pizza sold. Therefore, his net margin is 10%. Why does this matter? Let's imagine the price of cheese or flour doubles. Joe has to buy cheese to make and sell his pizza. So if this happens and Joe doesn't change anything else, then his net margin compresses, as we say. Now, of course, there are levels to this thing. Let's say Joe also has runs and he makes his own cheese. Or let's assume that he makes the best jam pizza in the state, so he can raise his prices while keeping his shop packed. I think that you see where I'm going with that. If a company has high margins, then they are more resilient to changes in the economy. High margins usually mean the company has a moat, or pricing power. We say that companies have moats, much like a medieval castle has a moat, when they command a serious competitive advantage over their peers. Maybe it's a bit funny to talk about moats for a pizza shop, but for the sake of the argument, if Joe did sell the best damn pizza in town, or if he had access to good products for low prices, if there were almost no other pizza places around, and for some weird reason there was no way to open a new pizza shop, let's say for the sake of the argument that Mr. Trump woke up and said no more new pizza places, then Joe's Pizza would have a moat, which equates to pricing power and thus higher net margins. Next, we have return on equity. I think Warren Buffett loved this metric as well. It is essentially an answer to the question, how efficiently is management using your money? Let's say you decide to give Joe $100,000 to build his shop. That's your equity, your stake in his business. At the end of the year, Joe's shop generates $20,000 in profit. So the business, the pizza place, produced a 20% return on the cash you put into it. Now, if Joe went ahead and gave you a 20% return on investment, go ahead and give him a hug and a kiss because that is an excellent job by your friend Joe. You should generally look for businesses with a return on equity of over 15%. If you look at a stock and it is only 4 or 5%, ask yourself, why take the risk? Why take the risk of owning a business when a high yield savings account in 2026 pays almost the same amount? For example, Google has a 35% of return on investment, Arista Networks a 31%, and Meta has a 30.5%. All top tier companies with metrics to support this statement. Now, for the scary one, the debt to equity. This answers the question: who actually owns the business, you or the bank? To buy the pizza shop, you put $100,000 in of your own hard-earned money, but you had to borrow 200,000 from the bank to finish construction, buy the ovens, etc., etc. Your debt to equity ratio is 2. For every dollar you own, the bank owns 2. And here's the sad truth: the bank gets paid first. If a recession hits and pizza sales drop in half, you still have to make that massive loan payment. High debt companies are the first ones to go in a bankruptcy when economy slows down. So as a beginner, look for ratios well under 1, And if you see our three examples, Nvidia has an exemplary ratio of less than zero point 0.1, but maybe you would be surprised to know that Apple and Coca-Cola even have a ratio of over 1. So maybe don't be so harsh. If a company is large enough like Coca-Cola or Apple, maybe they will not go down, but you have some company that no one knows, maybe be more careful with this metric. Finally, the current ratio. This is the emergency fund. Just like us, common people, we need to keep some money on the side for emergencies, and so do the companies. Imagine it's Friday night and the main oven breaks down again. Joe called his mechanic. He's a very good mechanic and he can fix it, but it will cost $5,000 to fix it today. And not only that, Joe has to pay for his stuff tomorrow another $5,000. So, total bills due right now for our friend Joe stand at $10,000. He opens his bank app. And does he have the cash? Well, if he has, let's say, $15,000 in the bank, his ratio is 1.5. He pays the bills and he moves on. If he had like $8,000, his ratio is 0.8 and he doesn't have the cash to pay. So, what will Joe do in this situation when he doesn't have the cash? He can't not pay his stuff and he needs to fix the oven. So you will likely have to take out an emergency high interest loan. Or dilute shareholders. If Joe's Pizza was a publicly traded company, he would have to do that just to keep the lights on. Always check this for struggling companies. A ratio of 1.5 to 3 is generally considered healthy, while a ratio under 1 suggests that current liabilities outweigh the current prices and may indicate a potential liquidity risk if cash flow is interrupted. And again, we have three popular stocks that might be surprised to see that their current ratios are actually poor, uh, with Microsoft and Amazon having a total ratio close to 1, and Apple actually having a ratio of 0.97. However, again, because these companies have so strong free cash flows and are so massive, they can get away with it. If we look at another company that I own, Joby Aviation, now they have a ratio of 13.61. This is a very high ratio, and it is typical for development stage, pre-revenue or early revenue companies with substantial cash from uh, their investments and low liabilities. And now, finally, here's the cheat sheet covering everything we just discussed. Take a screenshot and keep it handy. Net profit margin tells you how much pain they can take. Return on equity tells you how efficient they are at managing your money. Debt to equity ratio gives you an idea on bankruptcy risk. Current ratio tells you if they can pay the bills in the near future. And if you compare these quality checks with the valuation checks from the previous video, then you are already ahead of 90% of beginner investors. Don't be shy and tell me which of these you were already using and which one is your favorite. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.